December 8th, 2017. DARPA invests $100 million in genetic extinction technologies. That just sounds terrifying in and of itself, doesn't it? Genetic extinction technologies. And this is out of the Merkel.com, and there's actually many sources on this throughout the internet. When technology and science come together, interesting and scary things are bound to happen sooner or later. A U.S. military agency, DARPA, is looking at ways to invest in genetic extinction technologies. Rather than using the said technology against humans, however, the goal is to wipe out species of animals notorious for carrying diseases. It's an interesting train of thought that will send some shockwaves throughout the industry. So genetic extinction technologies are of great interest. It's rather remarkable to see the U.S.'s Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, become a major funder of research into genetic extinction technologies. Every time the U.S. military gets involved in science or technology, it's often as a way to create a new form of weaponry. For now, the U.S. $100 million funding is going to be put to some good uses by the look of things, quote unquote. More specifically, the agency is investing this money into technologies which can wipe out dangerous animals and insects. The first order of business is getting rid of malarial mosquitoes. Although invasive rodent and other undisclosed species are also on the list, it is evident that there are some problems in nature which can be addressed with these technologies. Although going against Mother Nature has never worked out so well in the favor of mankind so far. For every victory we score in this regard, the planet will find a way to strike balance, really. It says strike back. According to a new document, DARPA is now the largest funder of genetic gene drive research. The area of study appears quite promising, but it's also being scrutinized by the United Nations. That in itself is not surprising, as the Convention on Biological Diversity, a multilateral treaty signed in 1992, frowns on such research. It is certainly true that not all animals or insects are useful to us as a species, but that doesn't mean they should be eradicated either. Moreover, there's growing concern over the direction gene drive research may be heading. Potential military applications for this research are also of concern, although none seem to exist right now. I'm sure they do. The U.S. military is always looking for new tools, and genetic extinction technologies can be weaponized in one way or another. DARPA doesn't have the best reputation in this regard either, which will only make matters worse. Unintended consequences are always difficult to predict, especially when these technologies are tested in the real world. For example, the mosquito population may no longer spread malaria, but it may affect other species along the way. There is a lot we don't know yet about how nature works, and messing with things one doesn't understand is never a good idea. Last but not least, the fact that DARPA is one of the sole funders of the gene editing research right now is very problematic for many reasons. This field of research deserves a lot more attention than it gets right now, and the agency's involvement will be scrutinized, especially in light of this factor. Whether or not we will see other forms of governmental agencies focus on this technology in the future remains to be seen. And this is out of naturalnews.com, which even paints a grimmer look at it. DARPA developing genetic Doomsday weapon to exterminate populations on demand. GMOs to become WMDs. The U.S. military agency, known as DARPA, is investing $100 million in genetic extinction technologies, which can be deployed to exterminate targeted human populations. Emails acquired under the Freedom of Information Act suggest that the U.S. Secretive Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency has become the world's largest funder of gene drive research. The use of genetic extinction technologies in bioweapons is the stuff of nightmares. The disclosure of this genetic extinction technology comes on the heels of Natural News blowing the whistle on a global eugenics program to target and exterminate people of African descent as part of a ongoing global depopulation agenda. In a 1-hour video lecture published a few weeks ago, and the author detailed 6 vectors through which the weaponization of science and medicine is being deployed right now to exterminate African Americans and those of that genetic descent. The genetic Doomsday weapon system now being developed by DARPA is based on the CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing technique, which allows simple, low-cost laboratories to achieve previously impossible genetic editing goals in almost any organism, including humans. These might, for example, distort the sex ratio of mosquitoes to effectively wipe out malarial populations, but they could also be used to wipe out targeted genetic subspecies of humans, too. The dual-use nature of altering and eradicating entire populations is as much a threat to peace and food security as it is a threat to ecosystems, explained Jim Thomas, co-director of the ETC group, as reported by The Guardian. Militarization of the gene drive funding may even contravene the NMOD Convention against hostile uses of environmental modification technologies. Because much of the funding for modern-day science comes from military and government, scientists are finding themselves to work on weaponization programs or face a loss of funding. Todd Kukin, who has worked with GBIRD program, which received $6.4 million from DARPA, said that the U.S. military's centrality to gene tech funding meant that researchers who developed or who depend on grants for their research may reorient their projects to fit in the narrow aims of the military agencies. The weaponization of gene drive technology, turning genetics into a doomsday weapon, is widely known to be capable of spreading throughout a population and causing deliberate extinction. Think of it as a way to supercharge evolution, forcing a genetic modification to spread through an entire population in just a few generations. The technology is so potentially devastating that former National Intelligence Director James Clapper classified gene drive technology as one of the many weapons of mass destruction and proliferation. Taking into account things like how often CRISPR screws up and the likelihood of protective mutations arising, their work shows how gene drives could be ruthlessly aggressive. Natural News warned the world about weaponized GMOs 5 years ago. As usual, Natural News was years ahead of the lagging scientific community in sounding the alarm over weaponized genetic engineering technology. In a 2012 article entitled SOS Alert, Help Stop Out-of-Control Science from Destroying Us All, the author wrote about weaponized GMOs as a danger to human civilization. Humanity has reached the tipping point of developing technology so profound that it can destroy the human race. Yet this rise in science, quote unquote, has in no way been matched by a rise in consciousness or ethics. Today's science operates with total disregard for the future of life on Earth, and it scoffs at the idea of balancing scientific progress with caution, ethics, or reasonable safeguards. Unbridled experiments like GMOs have unleashed self-replicating genetic pollution that now destroys the integrity of food crops around the world, potentially threatening the global food supply. Science must serve the long-term interest of humanity, not serve the short-term profits of corporations. To protect the future of life on Earth, science must operate under the precautionary principle. So, and it goes on to show farther down here, some of the dangers, obviously, that we face worldwide with the different levels of pollution, physical pollution, chemical pollution, radiological pollution, self-replicating pollution, like GMOs, artificial intelligence. Technology without wisdom is suicide. The top 12 scientific experiments threatening the survival of the human race. Nuclear power, like Fukushima incident. GMOs, self-replicating genetic pollution. Nanotechnology, self-replicating microscopic machines. Bioweapons, self-replicating microscopic weapons. Atmospheric experiments like HARP. Artificial intelligence, AI. Particle accelerator, like the Large Hadron Collider that we were just talking about, CERN. Pollinator disruption chemicals, synthetic pesticides that destroy the honeybee colonies. Weaponized vaccines, Who knows what's in those? Antibiotics, rise of the superbugs. We should realize antibiotics, anti-life. It just makes sense. Water pollution with fluoride and mercury, and nuclear weapons. Now this is also, and I'm going to put the link in there, the actual convention that he was talking about on the prohibition of military or any other hostile use of environmental modification techniques. So this is out of the UN. More to be concerned with. Please leave your comments on this. This is definitely something that, I just keep thinking about the movie Resident Evil. Who knows what could go wrong when you start tampering with things like that. I mean, trying to wipe out one species, you might inadvertently wipe out another species. You might cause an aggressive mutation. I mean, who knows what could come out of this? We just don't know. It's terrifying use of technology, and something that should definitely be avoided, in my opinion. What do you guys think about this? Please leave your comments. I mean, it's like the public has no say in anything anymore. It's all just whatever the decisions of the military industrial complex is, it gets done. So share your opinions. If you found this interesting and informative, please give it a thumbs up. We truly appreciate your support. And share with as many people as possible. We have to get people aware of this stuff. When people are aware of this, when this is something that is out there in the mass population and the majority of people are aware of this, then possibly we could get some change. But unfortunately, so many people think that this is just crazy conspiratorialists going at it again. I mean, these are actual government documents that verify this. I mean, this is real. This is not just some lunatic fringe, paranoid harping on something that is never going to happen. This is real. So we need to share it with as many people as possible. If you guys haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe and join the growing Evolutionary Energy Arts family. And again, share with as many people as possible. Let's wake people up. I thank you so much for your support and joining me once again. Take care.